In February 1995, a venerable institution, 233 years old, that had financed empires, survived wars, and advised kings, suddenly vanished. Its killer wasn't a global recession, a market crash, or a hostile takeover. It was a 28-year-old trader, Nick Leeson, sitting in Singapore, meticulously hiding billions in losses inside a single, unassuming account. By the time anyone realized what was happening, one of the most powerful banks in the world was already dead. How did a working-class kid from Watford bring down Barings Bank, a titan that had weathered centuries of global upheaval in a mere 2 years? The story isn't just about rogue trades, it's about a fatal flaw in human trust, an unchecked system, and the seismic shift of power to a distant trading floor. But to understand its downfall, we first have to understand Barings' immense, almost mythological legacy. Barings Bank wasn't just a bank, it was a cornerstone of the British Empire. Established in London in 1762 by Francis Baring, it grew into one of the most prestigious merchant banks on earth. Throughout the 1800s, Barings financed governments across continents, underwrote monumental trade deals, and orchestrated international transactions that shaped entire economies. Its name was synonymous with stability, discretion, and insurmountable wealth. Yet even Barings wasn't invincible. In 1890, it faced near collapse from excessive exposure to Argentine debt, only to be dramatically rescued by a coordinated effort from the Bank of England. It was a close call, a stark reminder that even giants could stumble. But Barings learned, adapted, and continued to thrive, sailing through 2 world wars and countless financial storms, its reputation for resilience only growing. Then came Nick Leeson. Born in 1967 in Watford, England, Leeson's background couldn't have been more different from the gilded halls of Barings. He started in banking back-office operations at Morgan Stanley, then joined Barings, where he developed a keen expertise in the intricate world of settlement and trade processing. He understood how money moved, how trades were recorded, and crucially, how they could be obscured. In 1992, Barings, eager to expand its footprint in the booming Asian markets, sent Leeson to Singapore. They placed him in charge of their futures trading operations there. This was a critical moment. In an astonishing lapse of judgment, Barings also granted Leeson authority over the settlement and accounting functions for those very trades. This decision violated a fundamental, ironclad rule of risk management: the separation of front-office trading from back-office oversight. It was like putting the fox in charge of the henhouse and giving him the keys to the gate, the ledger, and the alarm system. Leeson, now with unfettered power over both sides of the transaction, found his opportunity. He began using a hidden error account, innocuously numbered 88188, initially intended for minor trade discrepancies. But soon, account 8088 became a black hole. When losses began to mount, instead of reporting them, Leeson simply shuffled them into this hidden account, making them disappear from official view. The charade began to accelerate through 1993 and 1994 as Leeson's concealed losses accumulated, growing ever larger, ever more desperate. The deeper Leeson plunged into his deception, the more he had to trade to try and cover his tracks. He wasn't just hiding existing losses, he was betting aggressively on market movements, hoping for a grand win that would magically erase his spiraling debt. His futures exposure grew to control positions representing tens of billions of dollars in a notional value, an incomprehensible sum for a single trader, let alone one without proper oversight. Yet back in London, senior management, including Chairman Peter Baring, remained oblivious. The internal controls were so laughably inadequate that multiple warning signals were either missed or dismissed. Leeson was a star performer on paper, generating massive profits. The more questions that surfaced, the more Leeson deftly diverted attention, relying on his unique position that allowed him to manipulate the very data that should have exposed him. He was building a house of cards brick by precarious brick, with Baring's entire fortune as the foundation. Then on January 17, 1995, an unforeseen catastrophe struck: the Great Hanshin Kobe earthquake. This was no ordinary tremor. It was a devastating event that shattered infrastructure, claimed thousands of lives, and sent shockwaves through global financial markets, particularly in Japan. For Leeson, the earthquake wasn't just a humanitarian disaster, it was a financial death knell. He had taken massive positions betting on market stability and recovery, hoping for a predictable upward trend. The earthquake introduced a level of volatility and uncertainty that torpedoed his entire strategy. Instead of a gradual recovery, the markets became a wild, unpredictable beast, tearing apart his meticulously constructed gambles. His losses, already staggering, began to multiply at an accelerating, uncontrollable pace. In the weeks that followed the Kobe earthquake, through January and February 1995, Leeson's desperation reached a fever pitch. He dramatically increased his speculative positions in Japanese futures markets, doubling down on his losing bets, throwing good money after bad in a frantic, last-ditch effort to claw back his losses. The sums involved were now gargantuan, far exceeding Barings' entire capital. He was no longer trading to make money. He was trading to survive, to hide. The market, however, showed no mercy. Every move Leeson made seemed to exacerbate the situation, turning his gambles into catastrophic failures. The pressure became unbearable. The truth, hidden for so long within account 8 was about to erupt. On February 23, 1995, with the scale of his deception finally undeniable even to himself, Nick Leeson fled Singapore. He left behind a single chilling note for his colleagues. "I'm sorry." Oh no. 3 days later, on February 26, 1995, Barings Bank finally discovered the true extent of the devastation. The hidden losses totaled an astronomical $827 million. This figure didn't just exceed Barings' available capital, it obliterated it. The bank that had stood for over 2 centuries, that had funded the Louisiana Purchase and survived Napoleonic Wars, was insolvent. The fallout was swift and brutal. Barings Bank, unable to cover the losses, collapsed entirely. The Bank of England, under Governor Eddie George, could find no viable rescue. Just weeks later, in March 1995, the Dutch bank ING acquired Barings for the symbolic sum of just $1. The venerable name, synonymous with British financial power, was gone, absorbed into a larger entity. Nick Leeson, meanwhile, was a fugitive. He was eventually apprehended in Germany and extradited to Singapore, where he pleaded guilty in November 1995 to 2 counts of deceiving the bank's auditors and cheating the Cymex Futures Exchange. He was sentenced to 6.5 years in Changi prison. In 1999, he was released early due to a diagnosis of colon cancer, a stark and somber end to a tale of high-stakes hubris. The collapse of Barings Bank wasn't merely the story of a rogue trader. While Leeson's actions were undeniably central, the investigations by both the Bank of England and the Singapore Ministry of Finance revealed a systemic failure of gargantuan proportions. Barings' senior management had allowed a single, relatively junior trader to operate without proper segregation of duties, a cardinal sin in finance. There was a lack of transparency, oversight, and a pervasive culture that valued perceived profits over stringent risk control. The tragedy of Barings serves as a timeless cautionary tale. It underscores how institutional inertia, combined with a blind spot for fundamental risk management, can lead to catastrophe, even for the most established institutions. It demonstrates that the most sophisticated financial instruments are only as safe as the human systems designed to manage them. And ultimately, it reminds us that unchecked power, in the wrong hands, can bring down even the mightiest of empires, regardless of their age or prestige. If this deep dive into financial history and human folly sparked your curiosity, consider exploring more stories of power, wealth, and their unexpected downfalls. Your engagement helps us continue to uncover these captivating narratives.